Hey guys, it's Cyrus of Chaos. Today I'm here with Peter Buchard, and he's going to be running for the position of president of the USFA. So we're going to sit down and talk to him today, let him explain a little bit about his platform, and answer a couple of the questions that you asked me to ask him. So, Peter, to start, why don't you take 2 or 3 minutes to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your backstory, and tell us why you're running for USFA president.
Thanks, Andrew. I'd like to take this opportunity to talk to your fans, and thank you very much for letting me talk about my candidacy.
Of course.
So many of you know me. You've seen me around. I've been at this game for 50 years. I've worn many hats and suits. I'm an athlete for Team USA, a coach, an NCAA coach, a referee, tournament organizer, bout committee, from tiny local events up to the Grand Prix level and at World Cups. I've been a fencing parent to a competitor who's now a coach. What was he thinking? Believe it or not, I exist outside fencing also. I'm a foreign language teacher and have been for 40 plus years, like 42 years, I think. I love literature. I worked at the Stanford Library for 10 years in the rare books department. I'm a musician, and I know this could lose me some votes, but I'm a drummer. I've been playing drums since the 3rd grade. I'm also a huge baseball fan, and right now it's killing me that I can't watch the A's. On the other hand, it kills me when I can watch the A's. I'm also a dog person, and that's me. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Of course. So why did you decide to run for president of the USFA?
So your viewers may know this, and they may not know it, but the criteria for leadership at the USA Fencing have gotten narrower and narrower the last few seasons. The bylaws have changed, and it has created a revolving door that allows only a select few to have a voice in the organization. I happen to be among those who meet these criteria, probably because I've been at it for so long and worn so many hats. When I was encouraged to run by my colleagues in the coaching and referee communities, I saw an opportunity not only to improve USA Fencing service to all of the membership, but also to dismantle that insular leadership system with term limits and changes to the stringent requirements allowed for more creativity and new ideas. That's what we need. So this is not a fiefdom. It's a living, changing sport that we must not suffocate its progress. I feel that since these people asked me and I got through the nominating door, it's now my duty to make this a great presidency and to change a lot of things to improve communication and to really listen to the constituencies that are out there and need my help.
Yeah, I'm all about transparency and obviously listening to your constituents. So those are 2 great things to run a platform on. So when I reached out to people on Instagram and asked them what they would be curious to ask you about, the number 1 thing on everyone's mind, and not just on the minds of fencers, was the pandemic. So
Sure.
As a club owner, what are some of the changes that you would make to the USFA to help clubs out during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, first I'd like to say that things will be different. And as we move through this together, we have to realize that we can't just flip a switch, but it's going to be like a dimmer, like slowly turning on.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to have, teaming clubs, everybody high-fiving or running around having fun in that way. We're going to have to change the dynamics. And there needs to be directives from USA Fencing on how to do it, and not just follow your local governmental guidelines. Obviously, the help that we really all need right now is financial.
Yeah.
Some of our clubs have been closed for 6 weeks. and will not reopen soon. Other places like, I think Georgia is trying to reopen, and also Texas soon. And we need to help them and guide them. Of course, they have their own ideas, but there should be a proactive, creative solution coming from the leadership, because that actually is the job of USA Fencing.
Right.
So for many coaches, clubs, the sole source of income is fencing, and members have endeavored to keep paying their dues. I know that's for a fact, but many cannot.
Yeah.
Because they've lost their jobs themselves. Many clubs have applied for financial assistance, like the payroll protection program, but that has not come through. I know of one instance, for instance, that this club owner was first in line and was sure that would give her the chance to get such a loan, but it did not come through. We will suffer the debt that we've incurred this coming season and far beyond, both the club owners and USA Fencing. Some clubs will not recover. Unfortunately, USA Fencing is not in a position to provide the help we need most. Their revenue is nearly all drawn from tournament fees. And if there are no tournaments, there is no revenue. So, since the tournaments have been canceled and USA Fencing is hurting at the moment just as we are, we must, in the future, earmark funds for disaster relief in anticipating this day, because this is the rainy day we've all been thinking of, but USA Fencing is not prepared. We can't be caught unprepared again. Let's protect USA Fencing solvency by diversifying revenue streams. So that's for the future. What can be done today? Better communication and more proactive leadership from USA Fencing. Shortly after California clubs were forced to close, I compiled resources with my colleagues at US Fencing Coaches Association, and we created a guide for taking your training online. Coaches from across the country contributed their own videos for those who aren't in a position to produce content for their students. I'd like to call out some clubs, one from each corner of the country. I'd like to call out Northwest Fencing from Beaverton, Oregon, Cutting Edge Fencing from Fort Worth, Texas, the Fencing Academy of Philadelphia obviously from Philadelphia, and Red Star Fencing in Chicago. All of these people have taken down their paywalls. All of these people have offered their video instruction for public consumption, and instead of being rivalry clubs with proprietary intellectual property, they've offered up their colleagues and all of their fencers and competitors, in fact, this kind of video. So that's the kind of spirit we need to move forward with, and that comes from communication, in my opinion, and gaining the trust once again of the membership. I think too often USA Fencing leadership right now is not in tune with the needs of the fencers. This kind of collaboration should be at the core of US Fencing.
Yeah, I totally agree. So once the pandemic is over and we establish a new normal, whatever that might be, what is your plan to increase the development of fencing at a high school level, a collegiate level, and even at a club level?
So I was introduced, just so you know, I was introduced to fencing in a rec program in college. I didn't start fencing until I was 18. And the availability of the sport as a fun activity can lead to a lifetime of enjoyment and involvement, as it has for me and so many others.
Yeah.
Also, I would like to call out two recent films that can attest to this. There's Black Blades and there's Stro. I'm not sure if you're familiar with either one or both, but they're great. Anyway, these show fencers how like total beginners and group classes where they have wonder in their eyes, and this is the type of thing. This is the type of spirit we need to instill and bring forward. The Stro movie is about my coach Michael DeSaro, and not everyone can be a champion. That's true. But everyone can get something from our sport, as we all know. It's a life lesson, and it can be a lifetime endeavor. I've had students from ages 6 all the way to a beginner at age 78, and my fencers continue to fence. I get emails and calls from Boise, Idaho, or New York City, and they're still at it even past college. So I think it's a spirit that you can instill as a coach. USFA has recently developed a fencing fundamentals program that is adaptable for PE teachers to include their sport rotations in middle and high schools. So many schools have PE programs where they rotate through various sports, and fencing is not really among them very often.
No, it's not. Yeah.
So we've got a program ready to go that can train up a history teacher or another PE teacher, obviously. But it's often at schools like that they need a faculty member to go, and maybe they fence like in high school or something like that. But we have a program to train them up and let them have good resources to coach. The barriers to fencing in schools are often access to coaches' education and equipment. So
yes,
I'd like to propose that USA Fencing will make equipment and program guidelines available to any school to apply for, and will provide resources for curriculum support and coaches' education. USA Fencing will communicate directly with ADs, school principals, physical education departments, and will make it easy to begin a fencing program. We also want to develop high school competitive leagues in cities across the country, and to bring them together around regional and national championships. Now, these things don't exist at this point. I'm aware because I was a coach in a high school in San Francisco, and that's a place that has a league that's competitive. It includes private and public schools. I know that Chicago has quite a developed high school league, and down in Atlanta, I think they have an FA-only high school league, and there are programs in Texas, and there are programs like crazy in New Jersey and New York. Many of my colleagues with Mike DeSaro were guys who come out of those programs, and they're still at it now.
Yeah, exactly.
4 or 5 of them they're coaching because they want to give back, and their coaches in the high schools instilled in them this type of value and love for the sport. And so this can be a reality for all of us all across the country. So the problem with developing these leagues and this championship is that fencing is in different seasons in different areas. So that's the main problem we've encountered, because we've definitely looked into this situation, but I think we can unify and come around that. So with somebody to look forward to, like a national championship or even a regional championship, we can instill a love of fencing and a love of competition, and then they will matriculate into the college ranks. I also want USA Fencing to look into supporting college programs in the same way, with coaches' education and equipment if they apply, because I think there's a lot of folks that don't play lacrosse or football or basketball, probably like most of us, and fencing is the sport we found that we were miraculously, in some cases, good at, and it's given us a love of fencing for the rest of our lives. So these are the type of provisions that I would make. I'd also honestly like to try to make the NC2A more robust by providing resources to colleges that might be considering, but they're on the fence. The Midwest, and especially the West, it closed down a lot of programs in the last 20 years, and I'd like to try to bring a lot of that back with support from USA Fencing, because if you get them in college, they're going to continue, and they're going to love the sport, and it'll be nothing but good things for USA Fencing.
Yeah, totally. So my next question, you've already given kind of the beginning of an answer to it, but what is your plan other than making it more accessible to people to make fencing more mainstream and professional looking, like tennis, for example? Like, how do we start to move fencing to the level of like fandom that tennis has?
Well, so I have a lot of ideas for this. That's why I'm kind of hesitating. So I think we need to improve our presentation.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
we're in this big room, and there's 5 or 6 tournaments occurring at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have our Div 1 final that's all the way across there. But then there's noise and distraction and all kinds of craziness happening in Y12 women's foil and veteran 60 men's FA and stuff. Look, I'm not saying they're not legitimate tournaments, but it takes away from the pageantry and the presentation that our sport can and should have. I've experienced fencing in Paris years ago, where they put on an amazing tournament. It was like the Chicago Bulls or something like that for a game. Where it was in a ballroom, not in the tournament venue where all the preliminaries happened, but the last couple of bouts were a couple 3 hours later in this ballroom, and they had an MC, and the lights went down, and then strobe lights came on, and the music came, and they introduced with an MC, they introduced the competitors and their records and everything else, and the spotlight was on them. And that's the kind of excitement we can generate if we just try a little bit. Heck, we're the United States of America. We're the showmen. We're the media kings. We're it. I don't see why we should lag behind so badly. I talking about tennis. So what's great about tennis, and how did they develop that? Well, they've got lots of cameras going on. They got facial reactions. They've got crowd reactions. And in fencing, it's a little bit more difficult, I believe, because of the involvement of a ball. So a ball is easy to follow, but fencing with the blades and stuff, it's kind of hard. So I believe that with various camera angles, including from above, where you can see the disengage just in foil and epee, or from the side or rear, or any kind of camera angles, this isn't hard to do. The GoPro, the cost of that has gone down so much. We can easily make up the instant replay that way, and also broadcast on a YouTube channel or something like that with professional production as well as we can do, and announcers. And I believe that we can also attract sponsors during this presentation of the final. I think we should have like a jumbotron, like above the strip, and show instant replay during the bout, and then between bouts attract sponsors to do advertisements, as they do. I think I said Chicago Bulls, but I'm a Warriors fan. Anyway, that's what they do at Chase Center. So why not us? And I think we might easily attract national companies like, I don't know, Pepsi or Gatorade or something like that. So I think that kind of a presentation would be good. And I also think that fencing, we have lost a lot of the fun part of fencing. Like, for instance, I'd like to call out Duel in the Desert, which is now gone away. But the Duel in the Desert was an amazing tournament, and there was a gala final at the end, and everyone dressed up, and there was an event, and they served a wine and beer to the adults, and there was lots of kids in the audience, and there was an MC. That was me, and it was a fantastic event, and everybody loved it and looked forward to it all season. But that kind of stuff has gone away. Why can't USA Fencing do something like that? I think it can, and I think we need to. So we pick a premier final on a day. We hold it somewhere else besides the room where all that stuff's going on, and we create a show.
Yeah, those are all good. And I mean, part of it is just exposure. And right now they're, like you said, advertising it on YouTube, creating a venue like that where it can generate interest and people can actually see it will get people more interested in the sport. So that's all great stuff. So
Well, it's also like the media presentation. You know, they have that thing where they can trail. Like if you watch hockey, they do the puck and it goes like all over the place. They can trail the points and like show the trajectory of it. They can show the impact on the target in the instant replay and stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of production value we can bring to show the excitement, because we all know it's there.
yeah,
That thing is magic. It's got swords. It's got honor and salutes. I mean, come on. That's what made us fall in love with it, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, it is, absolutely.
So
in your charter, you talked about there are some pitfalls in tournament organization that you would want to address. So can you talk about what a couple of those pitfalls are and how you would address them?
of course. Let's see. So tournament organization. First of all, as we come out of the pandemic, our tournaments are going to have to be small.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is. And when we get back to the big NACs and stuff, we have to reduce the numbers. So recently, I went to a tournament, and you were probably there too, where there were triple flighting.
I was very much there for that tournament.
And at the same time, they double flighted both foil and épée on the same day. It can't be, because this is what happens, and you're very aware of this, and I'm sure our audience is very aware of this. But you do your pool, then you sit there for 2 hours while they double flight or more. Then you have to warm back up and psych back up, and we have to limit the entries. Otherwise, it's going to continue like this, because we're only growing.
Yeah.
When we come out of the pandemic. Good. So we're going to have qualifying pads that start on the local level. We have to reactivate a structure that was there and we all came up under, at least I did, where the great fencers in the area actually went to the local tournaments. Mm-hmm. So, because they're going to need to practice, for goodness sake. So in my area, I know, all the big shots, they don't ever show up. And, it's the lesser fencer that you use these tournaments to train and to hope and that they get there. But now they will show up because, as I said, they need to practice. So we make these tournaments qualifying paths to regionals, and then the regionals a qualifying path, always paring down and making it that the criteria to qualify become a little more difficult until we arrive at a truly amazing field from across the country where everyone has fantastic skills, and that's who deserves to be at the NAC. So it's a revenue stream problem, of course, and the USA Fencing has to figure out a way to assist in these tournaments, to try to make a uniform presentation across the country with guidelines. Now, I'm lucky enough to be in the San Francisco Bay Area, where we have an organization called the Bay Cup, and it's fairly famous around the country, I think. But at any rate, it's a series of tournaments for region. I think it involves 3 divisions and like 9 counties or something like that. And it's kind of like a divisional, but it's a series of tournaments where it's very well attended. And I can tell you that I was proud to referee as little tiny kids, Garrick Meinhardt, Alexander Macialis, and stuff, because they came up through the Bay Cup. And this is the type of organization where we have developed guidelines for tournament organizers and stuff. And I'm sure this occurs also in other places. I'm sure New Jersey has something like that because they have so many fencers. But we need to develop protocols for the tournament organizers and also head refs, etc., and put them out there so that USA Fencing has kind of a uniform presentation for tournaments. Everybody knows what to expect, and that goes also to the refereeing. Like, now that we're all stuck and there's going to be like 28 fencers per tournament at the most or something like that, where are the referees going to work? Well, they're going to work there too. So it'll be high-level fencing, high-level refereeing, and they will be mentoring the other referees, and all the refereeing will improve too. So I think that we can take this as an opportunity. It's a disaster, that's for sure. But we could take this as an opportunity to develop as I said, these other pathways that that used to exist, and that that can serve us really, really well going into the future.
Fantastic. So one of the other things that you talked about in your platform, which I think is something that needs to be organized a little better as well, is referee development. So can you tell us some of the ideas that you have for training and continuing to develop new and existing referees?
Yes. Thank you for the question. It's a good one. So I'm Zooming. I bet you're Zooming. All
Yes.
the schools are Zooming. Many of the, as I already mentioned, 4 clubs that have their Zoom stuff online and that anyone can access to, but there are many other clubs that don't record their stuff. They just have Zoom lessons because, heck, we have to survive, and we have to keep our community going, and we have to keep the involvement going. So with all of this development, we're all learning how to do this, including myself kicking and screaming. But we need to have a referee seminar that's online. And this will make uniform or more uniform refereeing throughout the country. We have these 8-hour sessions, or they're supposed to be, presented by esteemed referees, where people have to travel and sit in a room. We can't do that anymore.
No.
And they vary in quality, and they vary in content, and they often don't cover some things and cover a little too much, maybe other things. I think we have to make that uniform and make that available to the membership. This would be kind of for the basic stuff, but still, that takes 8 hours for me to cover. I still give referee seminars 2-3 times a year, and as we move forward, these kind of things. So these would also involve analysis of bouts from YouTube or the FIE channel or whatever else, and also from, I'm sure, Sires of Chaos, because there's a lot of controversial calls on there, and people sit around and analyze them, and this is how refereeing can improve. I know, for instance, of one club here in the Bay Area, I'll call them out, West Berkeley Fencing. They spent a whole Zoom session just analyzing Sires of Chaos actions and how to call them and why it was this way, and etc. So you can't be a great referee without doing it in person, but you can certainly expose yourself to and have an experience of what might happen, because until you've experienced it, you don't know what might happen. Anything can happen. And I like to call it the human chaos factor. I hope you don't mind but I think mine existed before yours. I don't know. At any rate, that's what I like to call it, because heck, anything can happen. You see something new every day. So then I would like to have institute a network of local people who will be responsible for the venues. That's not responsible for them, but to enforce criteria that these venues have to meet, like numbers of strips, space between the strips of the referees.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. Runoff room. When you submit today, you can say anything you want, and no one double checks. I think we have to do that, and it has to be on a local level, because no one wants to get on an airplane, and they'll be able to know these people and break it to them soft and say, you know what, this doesn't really make it. And we have to have people that see ahead of time. For instance, in my division, there are venues that just don't meet these criteria. But even if you sing to the powers that be, they still say, well, right here on my diagram it says it does. And I can't say it enough, so I just gave up. But these regional coordinators, they're called, they need to actually do something. And I think we can pay their mileage, and we can pay their like what a referee might make or something like that during the day. So and then I want to have a network that goes to the regional and to the national, where referees have a clear path to advancement, and where we have data entry and data coordination, even from the local level, because there are 3 tiers, as I see it, of referees: the local ones, the regional ones, and the national ones. And a referee who's ambitious wants to go all the way, but they often find roadblocks because nobody knows they ref or nobody knows them. Why would they invite them if they don't know them? But if we have a database that shows how many bouts they refed, and we have criticism, that's not right, critiques from observers at the tournament, because at these tournaments, well, I'm always there, so I'm an authorized examiner and stuff. I'm sure this is true in other areas, that this data will go to a place where the RC can see their progress and then bump them up so they can matriculate to the next level. And that way we'll have, people won't feel slighted, people won't feel ignored, that we'll have retention of refereeing. And from my understanding, statistics show that for every 12 new referees we get, like 10 quit. So that's no way to build a cadre. Yeah, that's the type of referee training I'd like to do. There's also a program that I personally work on, and this is the referee assessment, and it's been in development for 4 years or something like that. And our idea is that we go around with a video, with an iPad, and we thank you, and we observe bouts, and then so we have recorded the bouts, and we have assessed the calls, and for every referee. And the idea has always been that this, now since it's 4 years in, is quite a large database, that these will all be put online, and that they're not for they're not for ratings, and they're not for how awful you are, how good you are, anything else. They're actually for the referees themselves to go in and see what mistakes they might have made, and to have their own. It's not public. They have their own login, and all of this is theoretical at this point. But I want to fund it, and I want to have the bandwidth to make this happen. So our program that we've been working on for so long actually comes to reality. And I think this is also a great way, because you see yourself and you say, oh gosh, I remember that call. I know I blew it. Or you might say, wow, I'm pretty good. Or, and look at all those perfect marks I got. My goodness, I didn't know. So I think this is another way that referee, kind of on the higher level, I suppose, referee development and retention would be implemented.
Yeah, that's great. And from a personal standpoint, I know that I'm always more comfortable when I have someone recording a bout that I'm refereeing, so that one, I can review myself afterwards, so that if there was a call that I wasn't sure about, I can go check and be like, no, that was bad, or no, I think I got that one right. And then also, like, the coaches can't gaslight you and say that something happened when it clearly didn't. And you can just look at the video and say that didn't happen. And then it gives you a point of reference to see how you're improving over time. So all those are great ideas for improving the state of refereeing. So
can I just talk to the coaches thing for a second?
Of course.
Okay, so I would like to say that in the fencing, and this is shown during this pandemic that it's true, we're all one big community, and we're all on the same team. We're all interested in the fair and unbiased adjudication of the sport. And so we need to bring the coaches together with the referees. Right now, there's an enmity there. People, oh my God, here comes so-and-so. Oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. Oh, if they scream at me, I better give their fencer the call. Oh my goodness, that this happens. And people are cowed, especially the younger ones. And they're the ones we need to get. They're the ones we need to retain.
Exactly.
So some kind of rapprochement of the coaches. And honestly, when you talk to the coaches, which I do all the time, they actually want to help. They do. They want to help the referee. And if we can have some kind of a mechanism where the referee looks over and says, you know what, I can't really talk to you right now in public in front of everybody. I might have made a mistake, but let's do it afterwards.
Right, yeah.
And then that usually shuts the coach up right now. And then they talk later and they say, yeah, you might have a point. Or, I really didn't think so. And this is why I thought that. And the coach will often say, oh, okay, well, if that's how you figured it, that's how you saw it. I can accept that. So that kind of a collegial atmosphere between coaches and refs and parents will go a long way to referee attention too, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've answered all the questions that I have for you. Is there anything else that you want to say before we stop talking?
Well, I'd like to say that I hope I can count on everyone's vote, that I'm here to make changes. I'm here to make positive changes. Some people say to me that, and I've heard it whispered, that I might not be executive material, but that's okay with me. If the executive material means the people that are in power at this time, I'm glad not to be that way. I'm kind of a hands-on person that's walked in the shoes of everybody. I've walked in the shoes of the athlete, the little kid. I started teaching 6-year-olds in a program. I've walked in the shoes of the referee, both gloriously when I know I did a great job, and oh my God, I caused that person about and beat myself up. I'm there. I know that you trust me. I know that you know that I will listen to you, and you can approach me anytime. I'll be at the events, and I just hope that you understand that I will communicate, that it will not be a secret. The meetings and the decisions will be open to contributions from the membership, and as we move forward together and come out of the pandemic together, that we will create a wonderful tomorrow, and that USA Fencing will go on in a triumphant way. And these are the changes I want to make. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the piste.
Yeah, fantastic. Guys, everyone make sure that you vote in this election, and make sure you're informed when you're doing that. So thank you, Peter, for helping us.
Thank you, Andrew. It's really a great forum, and I really appreciate you letting me come on.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.